Okay, I think it's 5:30 by my clock. If it's all right, should we just start?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, good evening, everybody. And my name is Surabhi Goel. And on behalf of the Aditya Birla Education Academy, I'd like to welcome all of you to our fourth Masterclass, Developing Skills-Based Curriculum. Well, I think we will all agree that we've been thrown into the deep end and we're all learning to swim frantically. And I'm sure there's light at the end of this tunnel, I believe that this incident will profoundly change the way we have lived and worked. For educators, this would mean applying different skills while teaching our subjects in a more interesting and innovative way. Keeping this in mind, we have with us this evening and, of course, his morning, Mr. Otto, who joins us from Canada. Mr. Otto brings with him over 40 years of teaching experience. He's been a specialist in gifted education, teaching highly personal competency skills to educators and corporate leaders, and is also a skills-based curriculum designer. He has been a presenter and speaker at national and international conferences, workshops, in services for educators, and at various educational conferences for parents. He is an author of a couple of books and has designed inventor training courses both for children and adults. Without much delay, I would like to request Otto to please take this session forward. Thank you.
Wow, what a nice introduction. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. I see we've got 98 participants, and that's just great. I'm going to take you through the whole start to finish on how to develop skills-based curriculum. And I think this will be an exciting addition to what you are already doing in teaching. I'm not trying to replace anything. What I'm trying to do is to add to what you are already doing and also show you a different way of handling of what you're already doing. So let's begin. Everybody can see this? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay, so let's go. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm an education consultant. I was a teacher in Toronto, retired in early 2000s, and my specialty programming. And out of that came a lot of introspection. And the first book I wrote was Accent on Essential Life Skills. And I knew I had a second one in there inside of me somewhere. And that was Accent on Highly Intelligent, which is a summary of pretty well everything that I had in my head about what it's like to educate gifted kids and so on. Just to let you know, at the beginning, which was the mid-70s, I started off with a new team, pioneer team, in setting up gifted programming. And when we sat down and decided what to do, we had a little wall in front of us. We had the knowledge information-based curriculum, and we didn't want to particularly repeat that. What we wanted to do was something new and different. So the idea was skills-based curriculum. And with skills-based curriculum, we had no tests or quizzes or exams. We had no textbooks. We had no schedules or timetables. And that was our challenge. What can we teach children? What can we teach students if we don't have all those things in place that regular teachers always have? So what we did was we designed skills-based curriculum, and here's how it's going to work. So you're going to see the whole process right from start to finish. So in this slide, for example, we talk about the usual way that we operate in education is content, process, product. So content is the curriculum design. What subjects are we teaching? What knowledge facts are we going to be teaching? And then in many cases, we expect students to use their skills that they already have. It's an existing skill set. And what we were going to do was to add to this processing skills. And then hopefully what we were going to get was better products. So the first thing we did was we set up all the skills. So we had to figure out, well, how are these skills going to work? And what we did was we went through the natural process. So if we teach skills, in order to get better at them, you have to practice them. I hope you can see my little cursor here. So first thing we do is we practice the skill. When we practice, we get competent. How do we know that we are competent? Because of this: enjoyment and a sense of effortlessness. So when somebody is really good at something, they make it look effortless and they make it look like they're really enjoying it. Now, this led us to the idea of play work. If you think of it this way, play is the work of children. Work should be the play of adults. And that's not making it seem childish or anything like that. It's the idea of being childlike, having the interplay with things, the Google approach to play, and being playful with learning and enjoying it, developing passion. The next thing, once we've got that in place, we have to take a look at what is the outcome. So from all of that teaching, we were looking at 3 different things that come out of it. Number 1, independent learning. Independent learners are people who decide to choose or decide to do the learning by themselves or with others. Quite often, teachers expect students to do it all themselves. I read the book. I'm not a designer of a cover. I had somebody do it for me, but I had to learn how to get somebody to do that for me. Secondly, self-directedness. That means that as a learner, I get to choose what content I'm going to learn. I'm going to choose the directions, the subtopics, the topics, the regular topics, and I'm going to maybe go in one direction for a long time or short time, and another direction for a long time or short time. Ultimately, by doing this, I'm doing something new and different. I've got skills, I'm using them in different ways, and we're going to get producers of new learning, not just consumers of the old. Okay, so let's take a look at this. What is a skill? We had to decide what a skill actually was. It's an inner power, it's an ability. How do we get skills? Direct experience. A lot of skills, there's 2 ways you can get them, organically or learned. If you're going to learn a skill, it's best to have somebody else there to pass it on to you. So, facilitates performance and accomplishment, results in aptitude and competency. That's what we want in students. Now, skills vary in number and power in all of us. And that means that in a regular classroom, you've got a real mix of people in there with different levels of skills and abilities. Okay, here's the first one, little challenge for all of you there. What does paying attention mean? Paying attention is a skill. So what I'd like you to do is to go into the chat there, and I would like you to first of all think about it, and then write down your definition as to what you think paying attention is. You've heard the word all your life. From the time you were a child, please pay attention. I need your attention. Right now, you're giving me your attention. So what does it mean? I'm going to give you a few seconds here. Write down what you think paying attention means. Okay, everybody stop. Stop for a second. Stop. Okay, now go back through the answers. Take a look at the different answers. Everybody's got something a little different. It's got to be listening and focusing and doing this and registering and so on and so on, okay? Now, if you think about it, if we have a real definition of paying attention, wouldn't you expect everybody to have the same response? But that's not the case. Why? Because we don't teach paying attention directly. So with skills-based curriculum, it's really important to teach things directly. So let's take a look at, I'm going to teach you what paying attention means right now. So here's the true definition: a willingness to give time. In your head, you have the ability to control your time. And if you think about it, we talk about attention span. It's the length of time that you are willing to give to something. If you give time to something else, you have an interruption. And if that interruption is long enough, it destroys your stream of thought, and you may end up with not understanding what's being said or presented to you. You may not be able to grasp the meaning, and so on and so on. Also, what most important, we know whether we are on task or off task based on how we control our time. So let's take a look at multitasking. Kids multitask. Children today, I don't know about in India, but in Canada here, a lot of students are like little sparrows, little birds. They flit from branch to branch, and they change instantly here, there, everywhere. So the time is chopped up. So what we're trying to do now is to control our time. If you teach people the fact that they are on task or off task based on their time, what they want them to do is to, in their heads, control their time. If you're going to watch and listen to something, do it. You're on task. You will now know whether you're on task or off task based on what you're doing with your time. That is a powerful tool for students to learn. Okay, let's take a look at the overall objectives of skills-based approach to learning. Now, empowerment. Empowerment means that rather than me having the power to do something, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you be in charge. Secondly, independent learning. I already mentioned that. You can choose to work alone or with others. And then self-directed learning, you can choose your interests and the depth and breadth of studies. And also, you can produce new learning instead of just consuming the old. Let me give you an example of that from a real classroom situation. I had a student, Laurie, that went to high school after I finished with her in elementary 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I met with her a few months in, and I said, are you using any of the things that I taught you? Are you using any of the skills I taught you? And she said, well, yeah, but I kind of stopped doing that. Why? What do you mean? Well, I was in my science class, and my teacher gave us an assignment, and I decided to do the digestive system of the body. So I said, okay, that sounds great, easy enough. What did you do? Well, I researched it first of all, contacted the Museum of the medical world, and I went and visited them. I set up an interview with the doctor to discuss the digestive system. And then I took it back to my classroom as the assignment asked me to do. I did my presentation. I showed them everything I did. And if you were the teacher, what would you say to that student? Go to your chat there. Tell me, what would you say to that student after she did that presentation? Take a second. Go. Okay, stop. Stop for a second. Very good. If you notice the comments, notice how positive they are. Notice what you would have done to get other students to see what real learning was like from a skills-based approach. Let me tell you what this teacher said to her. Oh, Laurie, you didn't have to do all that work. You could have just gone to a couple of textbooks and summarize the information. This assignment was not that big. That deflated her. She never did it again. This is the difference between skills training and regular training. Shows you what students can do if you are willing to show them how to do it. That's the operating words, how to. Okay, out of skills-based approach, we're trying to create experts and specialists. An expert is somebody that knows something about everything, and the specialist is someone that knows everything about something. Let me give you an example. I had a student, Rob, who we got along really well. I knew his father as well, and Rob was into all kinds of stuff. He was into spending, and he was into energy and auras and so on and so on. And he found that I was one of a few people that he actually talked to about that. Surprisingly, he got involved in city planning. And what he used to do was set himself up to do some really special personal learning. So he set up an interview with the mayor. He set up an interview with the head of the planning department. And he learned all about those. Then he kept telling me all about them. He ended up moving to Denver, Colorado. And while he was there, he wrote me a letter and said, can you send me a copy of the Toronto planning bylaws? And he said, I want to compare Toronto bylaws to Denver bylaws. How many students would do that on their own? Skills-based approach to learning set him up to do that. Now, you can see the idea of teachers become guides. Most teachers are directors of learning and controllers of the learning. You have a curriculum to get across, you have test quizzes and exams to mark, to give reports and so on. And it's really difficult to become a guide. And a guide is someone who supports what the student is learning, as opposed to telling the student what to learn. So these are the three things that must be in place in order for a skills-based curriculum to really function properly. And first of all, highly personal, important to the student. I just gave you an example of Rob. Let me give you another example of highly personal, important to the student. I had a young boy named David, whose father was an architect, and he was one of the key designers of the Toronto Zoo. So he had a huge background there waiting for him. David was one of these kids that loved to fit in the classroom. Get rid of this thing called giftedness. I don't want it anymore. It's a scourge on my life. And I said to him, well, you know, what you're learning is for you. What is you're learning is not for anybody else. And it's important that you do the learning that's important to you. So here's an idea. Have you ever thought about what you'd like to be? And he said, I want to be an architect like my dad. And I said, oh, great. Okay, so let's give you a little practice at that. And I said, why don't you go home, talk to your dad, figure out what maybe 5 or 6 different things that architects should learn. And then together, why don't you come up with lessons? I did a little quiz in the classroom that I had. There were about 15, 18 kids. And I said, anybody interested in architecture? I'm going to try and set up David to do some lessons. And there were about 4 or 5 of them that said they were. So David went home. He actually sat and wrote out these lesson plans, brought them back into me. We took a look at them, adjusted them. And he ended up, every time they came into class, he ended up taking this group of 4 or 5 aside, teaching them about basics of architecture. On the last day, he took them on a field trip across the street where there's a new building going up. Now, personal, important to him, exceptionally real, and lastly, rewarding financially or credit-wise or prestige-wise. That's important too. But if you don't have any test quizzes or exams, I mean, what can you hold over kids? You know, you got to learn for the test quiz or exam. No, with skill-based curriculum, it's the other way around. I'm going to teach like him to have you learn these skills, and then you're going to reward yourself, and here's how you can do it. So I'm the guide. Here's how you might use what you've got to get a reward. You might want to start your own business. You might want to sell your product. You might want to start a new service or something like that. So it's got to be personal reward. If those three things are in place, skills-based curriculum will succeed. In learning, there are four important things. And unfortunately, personal competency skills are usually expected. They are not taught directly. So these are the other things that we put a lot of emphasis on in education. Number one, motivation. We got to motivate kids to learn. We got to go up and down and so on and so on. Motivational speakers have a great job because they can go back time after time with the same group and motivate them, and motivation goes up and then goes back down to original state. Experiential learning gives people a false sense of importance, because a little knowledge sometimes can be a dangerous thing. Oh, I'm an expert now. I've learned how to play a little song on the piano. Where's my concert? Set up the orchestra so I can have a concert. Foundation skills. This is an area that is broken up into two things. Number one, the basic skills that we teach all children: reading, writing, number sense, stuff like that. And there are foundation skills for specific jobs as well. I mean, when you went into teachers college, you learned how to be a teacher. You didn't learn how to be an engineer. So those are the foundation skills for teaching. Highly personal competency skills go through all of these things. When you teach highly personal competency skills, motivation increases automatically as students take charge of their learning. Experiential learning, they set it up. Foundation skills, you help them with the skills, and then they set up to learn about a particular skill, job, interest, whatever. And from the foundation skills comes passion. Now, I'm going to show you how to apply it to existing curriculum, because this is the way I started out. What we did was we very simply started with regular curriculum. And we chose skills that we thought we could apply to the curriculum. We researched the skill and elaborated on them. And then we taught them individually through teacher-directed lessons, either to the whole class or to individuals, depending on the need. We also directed the challenges outside the school as much as possible, outside of the course, because where's a better place to apply your skills than outside of a classroom? Imagine this. Imagine a company that has 1,000 workers, and all those workers do nothing but test, simulate, write, produce all kinds of things internally, practice internally, and none of what they produce ever goes out. You ask any child, where does most of your work go after you complete it, year after year after year? It goes into recycling bins, or it goes into the garbage, or it may goes on mommy and daddy's refrigerator for a little while. Grandma comes and has a look at it, and then it goes into recycling or the garbage. So the idea is, through skills training, students do things meaningful to them that they can carry on, and it becomes a lifelong hobby or interest or job or a product that they can sell, so on and so on. Okay, so what were the skills that we taught? These were some of them. And if you take a look at each of those, they are highly personal, every single one of them. If you look at part 6, interviewing skills, 6.4, that is something everybody should learn. 6.5, public speaking, everybody should learn that. Just take a quick look through the list. Is there any that caught your attention or catches your attention that you think you might want to use with your children, your students? Just type it in the chat area there. Pick out a skill that you think is important. Okay, stop for a second. Okay, stop. What you are doing right now is prioritizing. Here's your selection. Here's the menu of skills. What you can do now is prioritize. Which skill next, which skill after that. I'm going to show you why that's important. Now, here's the second list of skills. Let's just go back for a second. All of these skills, by the way, are explained in my book. In this one, they are not explained, but you got list upon list of skills in the regular writing and also in the appendix. So you're not going to be at a loss for selection of skills. You can choose from many skills. Here's some more skills. This is in one of the appendix. These are specific skills that are applied to jobs. So you've got high school students, for instance, that are going out into the workforce. Here are some specific skills that they might want to learn from you. Okay, so let's take a look at how to develop a little more sophisticated skills-based curriculum. Now, this came about from my work with a Korean English language arts company. They invited me to Korea to help them design a new curriculum. They had an existing curriculum that was no longer they could not add to it anymore. They had all the I's dotted, all the T's were crossed. Everything that they could do with that was already prepared. Those teachers in the classrooms had all of their PowerPoints prepared, all of their handouts, all of their lesson plans, everything in a curriculum development office for the company. They had about 50 writers that were doing all of that. So they invited me and said, we can't add to this anymore. We don't know what to do with it. People are actually leaving us because we're not putting anything new into it. So what I said to them, how about something a little different? Let's go with skills-based curriculum. It ended up, we wrote about 800 lessons for them. I had 4 writers that I was supervising. And this is what we did. I'm going to show you what we did. So the first 2 things are a little new now. Themes, areas of emphasis, and skills. Skills I've talked about a little bit already. And the first thing we're going to do is to take a look at themes. So these are broad-based, open-ended themes. They are universal type of themes. They might be a little more specific, but from a teacher point of view, what you want to make sure of is that it's open-ended. It can be researched endlessly from an endless number of directions. When you have that, a student then is able to choose depth and breadth. Secondly, area of emphasis. What we decided was there was going to be part of the human condition involved in it. So there was physical, emotional, conflict, things like that. I'll get into that a little more detail later on. And then lastly, the skills, which we already had up within the book. So there were 48 skills that were already mentioned. So with the skills, you have to study, understand, and then teach the skills and other sub-related skills. The skills became the new content of curriculum, so to speak. And what we did was we developed e-learning packages. Again, the important thing was making it really meaningful, valuable, and get them out of the school. All of these support materials, by the way, in the red, you're going to be getting a copy of. All right, so here was our plan. This is how you set up themes, emphasis, skills, skills-based curriculum. This is what we did in Korea. So number 1, we picked a theme. So ways of being valuable and a good person. That was grade 5. Grade 6 was relationships. Grade 7 was conflict and resolving it. Then we took a look at the areas of emphasis. So grade 5 was going to be physical level, intellectual, and then grade 7 was going to be abstract, emotional. And then underneath that, going through the book of skills, you can see the section and the number of the skill. We prioritize the skills just the way you did there a few minutes ago. And from that, we developed the lessons. Now, we added other things to it as well. But this is a good way of starting up with the skills-based curriculum. So we provide tons of support material for you, okay? You're going to be getting this. All of these are going to be your supports. And the idea is that if I ask you a question and you need to think about it, then we're wasting time. I don't want you to think about it. I want you to have trigger words. That's what all of these things are. All of these supports are triggers to thought. You don't have to scratch your head and say, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to present this? What am I going to study? What emotions am I going to have? And so on and so on. It's all in these handouts. All to do is get familiar with them, and you can go to them, and that's what you're going to use. So here's the most important components of the curriculum: learning these skills and then teaching them independently, directly, and then applying them to existing curriculum or new curriculum. This is support number 5. Am I going the wrong? No, here we go. Okay. Making it a real experience, support number 7. You can get into groups, for example. You can have discussions with people all over the world. This one here is finding speakers. What I did was I created databases, and I had students create databases. They surveyed their neighbors and relatives and friends and colleagues to find people of interest, people with specialty areas, and so on and so on. We developed a database that all the teachers, all the students could go to if they were doing a particular study. Databases are a great way of bringing everybody together in a school, especially the students and the teachers. Administrators, you can do that too. Actually, you could help out in contacting these people, inviting them to the school. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the skills a little deeply. Which one would you like to start with? Go to your chat there. Tell me which one you'd like to start with. Okay, stop. Okay. Everybody wants to start off a different place. No problem. They're all equal value. You can start in any one of these areas. There's no hierarchy from top to bottom. Every one of them is important. Every one of them has all kinds of elements to them. You decide where you're going to start. You decide on where you're comfortable starting and how you want to progress from there. So this is the beauty of skills-based curriculum. You have the choice of starting where you want and pursuing it in any direction that you want, and which gives you tremendous amounts of freedom. Ultimately, all of the skills training leads to the independent studies. I gave you some examples of that. Let me give you another example. One of the students I had, Michelle, this is a high school girl, and teachers would come to me and say, well, this student just, everything she's doing is so ordinary. She's supposed to be gifted. By the way, I mentioned to you, all of this works with every student, not just gifted students. But I'm using this as an example. By the way, the only difference between gifted kids and regular kids is how fast they learn it and how fast they apply it. That's the only difference. All of this works perfectly well in any classroom. It works beautifully with students with special needs and challenges and the handicaps. Find out what their strengths are, find out what their skills that you can develop, and then help them to build the self-confidence and to develop something that can be of value to them. Okay, so Michelle, students or teachers were scratching their heads trying to figure out, why is this student not performing at the A level? So I did what the other teachers didn't do. I took Michelle aside and said, why are you getting just C's and B's instead of A's and straight A process all over across the board? It's incredible sometimes what teachers miss out if they don't talk to students. So Michelle said, I have so many things on the go in my life. I don't need to spend all kinds of time on schoolwork. I'm satisfied with the C's and B's. I got so many other things to do. She was a developer of websites. She actually designed a school board website. She was moderator of a chat room that she built up. She did all kinds of websites for other people. And I followed up on her a little bit. She became a Google engineer after she graduated from university. So there's a perfect example of what happens when somebody has skills and is an independent, self-directed learner. I'm not going to do independent studies. I was going to include it in this originally, but it's too big of a topic for this. So I'm going to leave it for a future webinar. It's going to be an enticement for you to come back and join me again. Okay, testing and evaluating. How do you test or evaluate if you don't have tests and exams? Well, you have to take a look at it from an organic, natural point of view. How are you tested as a teacher? Let's go to the chat room. How are you tested as a teacher? Just you as a teacher, not as a person or anything else.
Otto,
Yes.
there was a question which I liked over here. It is given, of course, the other questions are also very interesting, but one question says, is it important to start developing some of the skills mentioned? Where is it gone now?
I get the impression they're talking about doing it in early years.
Is it important to start developing some of the skills mentioned in the previous slide early on in life? Does age matter?
Age does not matter. These are skills. If I taught somebody to ride a bicycle, does it matter how old they are? 3, 4-year-olds can learn to ride a bicycle. Do I have to have separate classes for 3, 4-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 60-year-olds? No, I can teach them all together. All of these skills you can teach at any grade level.
Okay.
What happens is each of the skills becomes more important year after year. Could we mute? Somebody's in the background there. Each of these skills can be taught at any level. And what happens is, as children mature, they are added depth and breadth. That's the important thing. That's why you have to learn the skill and know the skill intimately and inside and out, because you'll see what applies to very young children and what applies to older children, what applies to even adults. So each of the skills has a wide range of depth and breadth and can be taught at any grade level. I had a really smart 3-year-old that taught himself how to read. Mother called me in and said, what do I do with him? If I send him to school, he already knows how to read and write. He knows all the countries in the world. What do I do with him? So I said, you homeschool him? She said, well, as a matter of fact, I can. I said, okay, great. Here's what you do. And then you help him to learn as fast as he can, as much as he wants. Fortunately, with a knowledge, facts, information-based education system, we are forced as teachers to give students little bites of learning, little bits and spoonfuls of learning, class after class after class. If you take it from a skills-based point of view, skills-based curriculum point of view, you teach the students the skills and they can take them as far and as fast as they want. Come into classroom to bounce ideas off you, for you to help them, to meet with other students, to collaborate and to expand and to grow and find other help and so on and so on. It's a whole different way of teaching. So notice how you are evaluated. I think the principal takes you aside and gets you to write an exam or a major test every month or at the end of the year. But we do that with students. So if we are teaching from a very real point of view, we have to make the evaluation very real. And as suggested here, take the pressure off the teachers. if you've got kids going outside the classroom, if you've got guests coming into the classroom, then those people, let those people evaluate. I had kids do inventions. I brought in an invention developer from the city who listened to all of the presentations and evaluated all of the inventions. Should I have done that? No way. I don't know anything about invention. I didn't know about inventions at that time. So I brought in the specialist. I did inventing workshops with a group of 30 students in a private school. Did I evaluate them? No. I brought in an invention developer. I brought in somebody that runs an invention show for women. I brought in a guy who's president of an inventors group, and I brought in a money man. So those are the main people that an inventor needs. I brought them in, they evaluated all the inventions and picked the best ones. And then we had prizes, we had real prizes. The money man was ready to say, well, if your family is interested in developing this, if you are, come and see me. We'll sit down and talk about how to get money to do that. So that's making it real. But notice the pressure is off the teachers in this kind of teaching. So teachers don't get blamed for the failure, they don't get charged with favoritism, and students don't become dependent on teachers. They collaborate with other students, they collaborate with people in the city, and so on and so on. And as you can see in the list, those are the ways that we evaluated naturally. You're not going to give me a test, quiz, or exam. I get evaluated by how good of a job I do with you, what kind of an impact I make on you. Okay, so here are some more of the areas of emphasis, and those are really worthwhile developing. I'm going to talk about one. So the idea is money. Okay, so let's take a look at the theme as money. The skill is analysis, and those are the samples of the areas of emphasis that we're going to do. So let me show you how this happens. Notice my operating words are how to. That is what you need to learn to use often when you're teaching skills. The other thing you do is you take a step backward. What do you do before you do something? So I'm going to go downtown, I'm going to meet up with a company and some people that make handmade guitars. What do I need to learn to do before that? I need to learn how to take good photographs. I need to learn how to ask questions. Don't just send a kid on an interview without being prepared. It's like sending somebody into the swimming without knowing how to swim. Okay, so let's take a look at this.
Sorry, Otto, I'll stop for a minute. I can see a nice question saying that did you have pre-decided standards to evaluate skills?
No, because you can't really do that, because the learning that the students do is so personal, and that they are out in the world in so many different ways that you couldn't possibly really evaluate them. You can say to them, no, I really like what you did. I thought this is really important. As a guide to learning, I can say, well, you know, hey, listen, you know, you might want to contact this and this company or this and this person. But I mean, let's face it, let's say you're a lawyer. I mean, you prove yourself when you're in front of a court. You prove yourself to your client. So there are no pre-decided standards for evaluating the skills. You have to set the students up so that the skills get evaluated automatically. The student has to perform, and whoever is the audience for the performance will decide. Let me give you another example. There was a young boy whose grandmother had Alzheimer's, and he called the doctor and asked him all about Alzheimer's. The doctor didn't know anything about it. So the kid decided he was going to learn all by himself, all about Alzheimer's, did all the research left, right, and center. And then he called back to the doctor and said, well, you know, I learned this and this about Alzheimer's, and I thought you might like to know about this so that if anybody else asks, you can help them. The doctor was so impressed that the student was invited to speak to a group of doctors at a conference. There's the evaluation. Teacher didn't do anything. There's a natural evaluation, that a student is going to truly appreciate. Okay, can skills-based curriculum be merged with mainstream curriculum?
There is one more question, Otto. It says, do teachers teach skills as separate classes, or do they integrate it in their subject classes, or combination of both?
It's a combination of both. Some of the skills can be taught within minutes. Some of them can be taught within a few, with maybe a half an hour or an hour. And what you do in order to get that time is a couple of things. Number one, condense what you're saying. Use the Reader's Digest version of what you're teaching. So if you've got, say, an hour to teach a lesson, condense your lesson to 30 minutes. You know what? You can still get the message across. Ultimately, Murphy's Law says a task consumes the amount of time that's allotted to it. So if I said to you, within your lifetime, I want you to hand in an assignment, what are the chances I'm going to get it? Very, very small. If I said to you, I want you to take 3 days and then I want you to hand in the assignment. Okay, I can do that. If I said to you, you've got 1 hour to do the assignment, you're going to have to start thinking right now. Go for it. You're going to hand in something in the hour. So this is how you free up time within your classroom to teach these skills. You got to know the skill in advance really, really well. You got to know what you're going to teach about it, and then you got to find that time in your classroom.
One more, which is very practical in the Indian scenario. How can skills-based curriculum be merged with the mainstream curriculum? A traditional school setup where the teacher-student ratio is about 1:30. But that's also not the case. Sometimes in some of the national curriculum schools, it is 1:50. How do we ensure that the curriculum be personalized such that it caters to each student's needs? It's quite a valid thing.
Okay, let's go back to the example I gave you about riding a bicycle. So they're going to be merged with the mainstream curriculum. I can merge riding a bicycle with pretty well any curriculum, because within any curriculum, there is an element of bicycles. So let's say geology, ups and downs of hills. What kind of bikes are used ups and downs of hills? How is the riding different? How does the bicycle have to be different in order to ride it up and down hills? Bicycles in math. There's all kinds of mathematical stuff that's involved in creating a bicycle, and the stress and tension of spokes and so on and so on. There's your science, and so on and so on. With a little bit of thinking, you'd be amazed that every theme can be integrated within your curriculum. So the other important thing is, when you learn the skills really, really well, one at a time, you will automatically see how it might apply to what you're teaching. So for example, in Canada, in our history, we had a situation where because the country is so big, they needed something to connect it. And somebody said, what we're going to do is to build a railway from coast to coast. Imagine the debate that goes along with that. So you teach debating, pro and con, making of the Trans-Canada Railway. So that's how you do it. Is that any concerns about that? Does that answer the question? Regarding personal, ensure that the curriculum is personalized. If you are teaching the skills, it automatically becomes personalized because the student takes over the degree to which they learn it. They decide on the content and information and the information that they're going to use to learn the skill. You're going to have to show them, you're going to have to tell them what area to apply the skill to. And then they're going to apply it at different levels. Okay, effective cooperation. Now this is a little different. I'm going to just talk to you as teachers. First of all, I know that we're all mostly independent within our classroom. We don't see other adults most of the working day. We're involved with students, and we have to have a level of leadership there that is uncommon within the regular working world. We are in charge of 30-odd students, day in, day out, year in, year out. So what we're doing skills-based training is a little different. It's not teamwork, it's effective cooperation in teaching teams. So you, all of you within your school are the team. You are the teaching team. And effective cooperation now means that you're going to work together to create something that everybody can use. So a team teaching, sorry, not team teaching, the team approach has a specific goal, has a specific target. Effective cooperation does not have a specific target. It has a specific growth to it. Effective cooperation causes what you use as teachers to grow constantly. You're creating databases of new speakers. You're creating databases of organizations and companies that are willing to help you. You are creating databases of companies that allow visits by students. I talked a company that makes assistive devices for the disabled. I talked them into allowing our students to go and visit. They do not allow visitors. They never did. They never would, they said. But I actually convinced them. I said this, I said that, I said this, I said that. Well, okay, we're going to take a chance on you, bring them in. By the end of the session, because the kids were so involved, the guy said, have you got a little more time? There's a few more things I want to show them. And this is going to be really valuable to them. Is it okay? Can we continue this for a while? So that's the kind of thing that you get. If you go outside the classroom, it's incredible how supportive people are. Have the students create a database of their friends and relatives and neighbors. There's all kinds of expertise out there that is valuable. If you can't meet them personally, if you can invite them into your classroom, meet them virtually on the internet. That's more common now than ever. Look at us. I mean, we're almost 100 people together, and we can do this. You can do this in your classroom as well. I remember a few years ago, there was a group of students that connected with one of the astronauts in the International Space Station, and they had communication that way. The sky is the limit. The opportunities are endless. It's up to you to use your creativity, and you're daring too to do some of this. Excuse me. Just be gutsy. Try things. The worst thing that people can do is say no to you. That's all that's the worst that can happen to you. So be daring. Make contacts. Ask them if they can help. Ask them if you can students to them and they can be a mentor. Or on such and such. By the way, never ever do projects. Always do studies because it sounds so professional and research-like. Okay, now e-learning packages. These are really valuable in doing the preliminary research on skills. So what I used to do was to, first of all, get the dictionary definition of the word, and then I would just research all the different definitions and write it all down. And then, okay, these are some of the e-learning packages that I created on topics. And this is some of the research. What I did was I just went through and picked up all kinds of websites and articles, PDFs, you name it. And then once all that was built, I just left it as an e-learning pack. Then I went through one site at a time, and made a list of the topics, subtopics, interesting learning, new asides, and so on and so on. So in other words, I developed this skill to a great depth and breadth. And then from that, I decided on the teaching. Now, if we're doing this from a if we're doing this from an effective cooperation point of view, what you're going to do is to have a database of these e-learning packages. And that learning package can also have a breakdown of the skills and the subtopics and so on and so on. What is this? Ideas on how to teach them and so on and so on. And every teacher can go to that. Now, what you do is you break it down. You can break it down into years, because the same skill, like analysis, for instance, can be taught in different years at different approaches to it. And don't forget the areas of emphasis. We're going to approach analysis and apply it to conflict. We're going to apply it to emotions and so on and so on. So therefore, it can be developed year after year after year to great depth. One of the things I'd like to tell you about is the de Bono court thinking. And de Bono is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the greatest examples that I had on how to develop skills. Now, his specialty is thinking skills. So all of the other things I mentioned are not in his books. But this court, the de Bono court thinking, is one of the most useful things that you can use to start off with, because it will show you depth and breadth that I was just talking about. Depth and breadth on an actual thing called thinking skills. And from that, you can get some practice in teaching these particular skills-based skills. And they've got examples in there, they've got the breakdown as to what it's all about, and then they've got all kinds of interesting little projects and things like that. And there's challenges and debates and so on and so on. And like I said, if you get a chance, go have a look at de Bono court thinking, because it, as far as I'm concerned, if you're insecure with this, go to de Bono court thinking. It will show you how to do the thinking skills almost from A to Z. And then you can make your way through some of the other skills that are mentioned earlier. Okay. If you are interested, on my website, accentonskills.com, are my 2 books. And they go into elaborate detail on the skills and also the development of skills-based curriculum. And there's tons and tons of support materials. All the support material I've shown you in the red are in the book. There are, in the appendices, there are probably about 15 to 20 different individual appendix. And there's 2 ways of paying for these. One, you can send me an e-transfer, or you can pay online at Accent on Skills. There's a link there that explains the skill and also allows you to pay by credit card. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit and take a look at any other questions. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one here again. How can we ensure that the curriculum is personalized so that it caters to each student's needs? Do you remember I told you have to make it real, you have to make it personal, and you have to make it valuable? If you do those 3 things, then with the curriculum, by the way, okay? So if you want them to learn something, you have to make it real. You have to get it out of the classroom, and you have to make it valuable in some way. The student may get a job out of it. The student may be able to sell something or whatever. One of the interesting ways that you can start this kind of thing, especially with skills, is to set up a store in your school. Now, that store will be for the whole school. What you're going to sell are the products that the students make in the different grades, in the different grade levels, and different abilities. you can sell art. You can sell it in the store, or you might do as a very astute teacher did in my niece's school. They had an art auction. What they did was throughout the year, they collected up art. They brought in specialists from art galleries. They had art people. They had art people from the museum. They came in and evaluated all of the art. And then they picked out the best ones, whatever number there were. Now, these are works from all the students in the school. Yeah, there was a lot of art, but what was taken out was the best. All the students were told there's no guarantee that your art is going to be selected, but maybe it will. And they were told this at the beginning of the year, so they were doubly hard to try and get their art into the art auction. Once the art was selected by the experts, they had people come, they took the art to a professional framer. So the glass, the frame, everything was created to go, and the matting was made to go with the art. They had an art auction. They sold $15,000 worth of art in one day. They had a professional auctioneer come in, offered his services to sell all of the art. And the students got a commission on their work, and the school got a commission as well. The most of the money went to the student, not the school. I passed that idea on to my friend in Sri Lanka, who ran a group of schools. He owned 15 schools, early childhood development schools. I said, save the art. I want you to have an art show. Invite these people, these people, these people. What he did, what he had happen was some people came in and they bought up 12 to 15 pieces of art in one pop, in one purchase. Who were they? They were developers of calendars. They used those photos, they used those pictures on each page of calendar. And they had 2 people came in that bought them up in that way. There were people from gift shops that bought them to hang up to sell in their shops. And he made a ton of money as well. The students were between 2 and 5 years old. Do you think that they would understand when you said to them, look, your art was valuable. You're going to see it on your calendar. We're going to get you a copy of this calendar. That is your work. That is your art and effort. They understood. So that's the kind of thing that come out of skills-based curriculum. And like I said, if you take it outside the classroom and make it work for you, show students, empower them with the skills so that they can take it out of the classroom as well. I had a student that called me up, this was in the good old days, in the mid-70s, early 80s, when students were not as restricted as they are today. We didn't have all kinds of forms to fill out and security and stuff like that. So I talked to the parents. Oh, by the way, I invited the parents into my classrooms at any time, which they did. They would sit in on lessons and classes, no problem. I got them to agree that if their child was interested, that they could go out of the classroom and set up their own meetings and visits and so on and so on. I had a student call me one morning and say, I won't be in class today, so I'm going down to an animation company called Nelvana. And I've got a meeting there with some of the animators. I'm going to learn a little bit about animating. Great, no problem. Come back in whenever you're done and be prepared to tell us what you learned. I had one student that was interested in handmade guitars, who set up an appointment to go on to a company that made them. He came back. Oh, by the way, with that, we taught him how to take proper photographs using the law of thirds and so on and so on. And he said, I've arranged for them to come visit our classroom. I said, oh, great, when? Oh, and such and such. Okay, I'll set it up with them and so on. These guys came in, they had about a dozen different guitars, antique guitars, different types of guitars. They did a wonderful presentation. The guy came to me afterwards and he says, I don't understand how this kid did it. He got us to come here for free. We normally charge for sessions like this. So that can be done. If you are gutsy as teachers, you can get some pretty remarkable stuff happening. One of the teachers I was with, we went with her class to our government headquarters, the Queen's Park, where we have the Ontario provincial government. As we were walking through, there was a sudden commotion and all kinds of cameras and lights, and there was a gentleman in the focus in the middle of it all, and the kids gathered around watching this. And when he was free, the kids ran up to him and said, "Can we have your autograph?" And he said, "Sure, no problem. You guys are the best thing that happened to me all day." So that was great. The kids finished getting all their autographs. My friend, the teacher, went up to him and said, would you consider, he was the head of the Labor Relations Board at the time, by the way, would you consider coming to our classroom to talk to students about this kind of thing in government? He said, "Oh, yeah, for no problem. No problem. You know, I promise I will make an effort to get to your classroom." In the months that went by, that guy became our lieutenant governor of the province, which is equal to the premier of the province. But he is the Queen's representative for Ontario. He's the lieutenant governor of Ontario. And one day, my friend, the teacher, thought, this guy, you know, he isn't coming into my classroom. I need him in there. So she called him up. And he said,
Otto, some people have some questions also. Can we just quickly take their questions?
Yep.
I think so, you know, everyone is so tied up. I'm so sorry to abruptly stop in between, but the only thing is that people have all classes, everything to be taken up tomorrow. So the teachers might be getting, they need to prepare for it also at the same time.
Okay.
So there's a last question that I will take up from here. A skill-based curriculum is very dependent on students' self-motivation. How do we work with some students who may have interests that do not coincide with the curriculum? This is a very, very valid question.
Okay. Number one, the skills can be taught individually or to groups. Doesn't matter. You can teach one skill to one student, you can teach one skill to a group of students. The whole group does not need all the skills. Every individual does not need all the skills. As a teacher, you have to be aware what the need is. If a particular student comes to you and says, "I want to do this," you may say, "Okay, here's a particular skill that I'd like to teach you before you do this." Or let's say you're going to give an assignment within your curriculum and you think that everybody needs a particular skill. I want everybody to do an interview for this assignment. So I'm going to do a very quick lesson on how to do interviews, okay? And here's what you're going to do. Blah, blah, blah.
I hope, I'm sure the concerned person, you must have got your answer. If you still have any queries, please do let us know immediately. There's one more question. Again, this is the last one. Please suggest strategies to take this forward to schools that cater to students from the low-income families where resources at home are scarce and the environment may not be very conducive.
Okay. First of all, skills-based curriculum, skills-based teaching is not dependent on age. It is not dependent on socioeconomic background. It is an individual thing. You teach them the skill and you empower them and you nurture them and you help them step by step grow the skill until they can handle it themselves. There's a little saying that goes, if you give somebody a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime.
Wonderful, absolutely. Okay, I think so. We will bring to an end to the session, Otto. I just really don't have words to thank you for this excellent session that you have conducted just now. It was a bit content heavy, no doubt about it. There was a lot of things that we are taking from this particular session that you conducted. And there are a number of teachers who have mentioned that whether we are going to give, whether we are recording this session at all or not. Yes, we have recorded the session, and the YouTube link, once we create it, we will surely send it across to all of you. There are some very good ideas, Otto, which you gave us. I'm sure teachers will really try to implement in their respective schools. And by and by, if we start to have your workshop on individual skills that you have mentioned, I think so a lot of teachers are willing to sign up for that also.
Perfect.
Teachers, there will be a feedback form to you, each one of you. So it will be really great if all of you kindly send us the feedback, which will really help us to understand your understanding and how we take this forward for the future classes. Thank you once again, and all the people again on the FB also, along with on the Zoom. Thanks. Have a wonderful evening to all of you.
Okay.
Thank you, Otto. Yes,
Excuse me.
please.
Can I just make one last little comment? This is a really important question here. How can we ensure that the curriculum be personalized such that it caters to each student's needs? What's going to happen is you're going to teach the skills, and then the student will personalize the curriculum, and it will satisfy their needs. They will meet their own needs. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for showing up. I hope this was of value to you. And good luck. Please get in touch anytime. I'm more than happy to help with you and give you advice or support material if necessary. And you've got my email address right there. It's o.schmidtca@gmail.com. So please feel free to get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.